Alex. The fighting is in the east as well, but also around Bakhmut. So what has been the hardest fought among the battles?
Well, Bakhmut certainly has been the biggest fighting that we've seen really throughout this entire war. And now we're hearing from Ukraine's Ministry of Defense, in fact, the Deputy Defense Minister, who says that things are escalating in the east, that there are fierce battles, that positions are changing dynamically. She says that in the northeastern Kharkiv region, which is near to the border with Russia, that Ukrainian forces are on the defensive, that Russian forces have managed to make some gains there and farther south. And then around Bakhmut, which has just seen such an extraordinary level of fighting, that entire city has been destroyed. Remember, the Wagner mercenary forces, they were the primary fighters on the Russian side there for quite some time before pulling out several weeks ago. But Russian forces have managed to maintain control of the vast majority of the city. Ukrainian forces trying to push both in the north and in the south. To the north of the city, they haven't made much progress. They, too, are on the defensive there, while they make some gains in the southern part. So it is rather tough going for the Ukrainian side, not just in the eastern part of the country, but also in the south, where they have also made some gains, but they have been relatively modest, Fred. We did hear from a senior advisor to President Zelensky just yesterday who said that it is hard and it is slow going. Frederica.
And Alex, you're there in Odessa, which is where a lot of Ukraine's grain, has been exported from under the grain deal that was reached with Russia. So that deal is set to expire tomorrow. What could happen? Yeah, that
critical, huge Odessa port over my right shoulder in the distance. This deal is set to expire Monday at midnight. The last ship that was part of the Black Sea Grain Initiative has already left the Odessa port, and it is unclear what happens next. Putin has indicated that Russia may not renew this deal. If the deal is not renewed, that could threaten global food supply, that could drive grain prices up, it could damage the Ukrainian economy. Russia is claiming that it is a one-sided deal that really only benefits Ukraine, while Russia continues to be punished financially. Russia has said that one of the biggest things that it is asking for is that its agricultural bank gets put back on the SWIFT international payment system. That is one of their big demands. So far, we have not seen that happen yet. The last deal, the original deal, was brokered by Turkey and the United Nations, and the United Nations is still negotiating with Russia at this hour to prevent this very critical and important deal from lapsing. Fred?
And then also today, Alex, Vladimir Putin said that if Ukraine uses the U.S. cluster, ammunition, that Russia would reciprocate. What else do we know?
Yeah, this is a bit rich coming from Putin because we know there is documentation that Russian forces have used clusters throughout this war, from the very beginning of this war, on civilian areas, not just against Ukrainian troops, but in densely populated areas, which is, of course, illegal. That is one of the reasons that the United States says that they are going to give, and have given these cluster munitions to Ukraine. But Vladimir Putin has said that if Ukraine uses these American cluster munitions, that would be a crime, and that they could respond in kind. Remember, Frederica, we reported a couple days ago that these American cluster munitions are now in the country. We have not seen yet whether they have been used, but certainly that is the expectation that they could be used in the near future, Fred.
All right, Alex Marquardt, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much. All right, let's get more analysis now on this rapidly moving situation. Mark Kimmitt is a retired brigadier general in the U.S. Army. He was also former Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs under President George W. Bush. Good to see you, General.
Hi, Fred.
I'd love to start with this whole grain deal that's to expire tomorrow. Do you think there is some leverage there to convince in any way, Russia to keep the deal going?
Well, I would certainly hope so. As Alex mentioned, this would spike grain prices around the world, particularly countries like Egypt, where they import most, if not all, of their wheat. So as he said, this is just going to be used by Putin as leverage in his attempt to win this war through both military and economic means.
And then you heard in Alex's report there that, we're seeing the fighting intensifying on the Eastern Front, including Bakhmut. Ukraine says Russia, has sent its best troops to the area. Is Russia feeling the absence of the mercenary Wagner troops in this battle, you think?
Apparently not. I suspect that it was made very clear to the commander of the unit that's fighting now, when he came in to replace the Wagner units, that he was going to fight or die. It would have been very, very clear had a unit been sent in behind Wagner and collapsed, what a significant morale effect that would have, not only for Ukraine, but also for the Russian military as well.
Okay. And then on the issue of the counteroffensive, Ukraine says, and as well as its allies are saying that this counteroffensive is going very slowly. What does that mean? And, why share that publicly?
Well, I think it's obvious to anybody that is watching this that the Ukrainians have lost two of the key elements in a counteroffensive. Number one, the element of time and the element of surprise. This is tough going. As I've said many times, the obstacle belt that the Russians have set up has had months to prepare. It's multi-layer, and it's the toughest kind of fighting. So I would expect that this counteroffensive will be going on for perhaps months as the Ukrainians either wear the Russians down or find a soft spot in the Russian lines to punch through and get, if it's through Bakhmut, down to Mariupol on the Azov Sea.
And then have a listen to what a National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, said on CNN State of the Union about the U.S. cluster munitions that have been arriving in Ukraine.
But if they have not yet, they will be in the coming hours or days because they have now very rapidly been shipped into the fight and are in the hands of the Ukrainian defenders on the front lines.
And Vladimir Putin has, said it on state TV that he considers the use of cluster bombs a crime and that Russia would retaliate. We know that they used it on the front end very early in the war, hitting, civilian dense areas. That's the difference with this arrangement, right, that the U.S. has made with Ukraine, that it would be in more remote kind of locations so that fewer citizens would be impacted. So how do you dissect, what Putin is saying? Is this more bluster, or was it his plan to use them anyway, and this is just another excuse?
Well, first of all, I think everybody recognizes that they have been used fairly indiscriminately and in violation of the laws of land warfare. What I'm most concerned about is when Putin says he will reciprocate, it will not be with more cluster munitions, but he may bring out something like fuel air explosives, which is a very, very potent weapon system, which we've not seen on the battleground up to this point. It would have a significant effect on mass formations of the Ukrainian forces, or even worse, if he could possibly consider using it inside the cities.